Thank you all for joining us today as we explore a day in the life of translations for the Voice Referendum. The Polaron team would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians throughout Australia and their continued connection to land, sea, and the community. I would like to start with the agenda. We will firstly introduce our panelists and hear from Polaron's founder before moving to our case study, panel discussion, and finally finishing off with the Q&A. Just a reminder that we will answer all of your questions and comments during the Q&A section and at the end of this webinar. First off, I would like to introduce Philemon, or Phil, Darmo. He is a NADI accredited translator between English and Assyrian, and in 2021, he was awarded the Multicultural New South Wales Translator Interpreter of the Year. Wonderful to have you, Phil. Next up, I would like to introduce Daniela Ruiz. Daniela is a team member within the project management team at Polaron, and was the project coordinator for the translations for the Voice Referendum. Welcome, Daniela. I would also like to introduce Tabata Peher. She is the Chief Advisor for Public Affairs and Advocacy at Life Without Barriers, who arranged the translations for the Voice to Parliament. Welcome, Tabata. I would also like to give a warm welcome to Eva Hussain, the founder and director of Polaron Language Services. Eva is certified translator, interpreter, and NADI examiner. Now, Eva, before you tell me a bit about Polaron, there's something we should discuss first. What is the Voice Referendum?
Thank you, Carla, for that warm introduction. And those of you that don't know, a referendum is coming up later this year. We do not have a date as yet, but it should be announced pretty much any day now. And it's the first referendum since 1967 in Australia. So it's a very momentous occasion. And what we are going to be voting on, so all eligible voters, as you know, in Australia, it's compulsory, will need to vote, is whether we want to give the Indigenous Australians, Aboriginals, and Torres, Strait Islander peoples a say in the Parliament. And the reason that this is a referendum and it requires everyone that's enrolled to vote is that it will change our constitution. So all of you that are watching and don't know what it is and why we're going to be going to vote, it's important to get informed, and that is why we have created lots of languages, language translations of what the referendum is about, and we'll discuss them shortly in this webinar.
Thank you so much, Eva. And a day in the life of the translations for the Voice Referendum. Welcome, everyone. A little bit of the background of Polaron. We were established in 2000. We're an award-winning language services with offices in Australia, US, UK, and Europe. But further ado, I would like to hop on with Daniela. She has prepared a presentation on the translation of the Voice Referendum. Up to you, Daniela.
Thank you very much, Carla. Very happy to be here to have the opportunity to talk about this process. As we mentioned before, we will be talking about the accessible and translated resources on the referendum on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice campaign. And if we go next, please, Carla. Just like on the next slide. All these projects, as many projects as well, always start with a question. And the question that we had at the moment, at that time, was how could we inform all the Australians about the upcoming Voice referendum to help them to make an informed decision? So this is a question that have itself many questions. So what are the Australians for us? And understanding that is also just to know that Australian is not just the English speakers, but also we have a big amount of people around the country that speak other languages. Also asking ourselves, what is the voice referendum? How we could spread the word, how we could make the communities understand what is that about and why it's relevant. And finally, with those resources, how we are going to help them to make an informed decision. It's not just pushing the yes or the no, it's just like allowing them to have information and criteria to go and vote yes or no according to their own perspectives. Here we go next, please, Carla. So here we see like which were the main process, if we could say it like that. So in order to try to respond that question, first, with Law Without Barriers, with Tabata, that we will listen from her soon. Law Without Barriers created a working group. They lead this working group, and it was a group of partner organizations just willing and keen on contribute, not just with resources, but also with ideas to promote and inform about the voice referendum. Next, we have Polaron Language Services. With Polaron Language Services and our amazing group of language professional translators, interpreters, voice talents, community organizations, we go through all the creation of the translation resources. There, we create more than 250. We have more than 250 language professionals across the project. Around 500 resources in total per language, 5 Aboriginal languages, accessible resources like Auslan, Easy Read, Plain English, and we keep working on them. So just like the idea is just like we want to add more and more languages to make the information accessible to everybody. And finally, we are still on the dissemination strategy within the communities. So this is part of that. And this is also the opportunity to invite everybody just to spread the resources and share that with the communities. Next, Carla, please. So this is the overview of the resources. All of them are free. We translate more than 45 community languages. We create fact sheets, social media tiles, short videos, and in total we create 11 resources per languages. Again, they are free, they are available. You can go to Law Without Barriers website and then you can find the information. And yes, just like we really want that you go and you feel that this information has been created for you. It's not just for us, it's just for you, for all the communities. Go next, please, Carla. So this is how the resources looks like. We have aimed to create resources that are easy to read, easy to share, that everybody can relate on. So this is like the overview of them. And finally, Carla, please. We want to say thank you to everybody. This has been a huge project for all us. I'm pretty sure that we will see that we have learned a lot. We have, yes, just like through the process, just learn things that we didn't know about the Aboriginal communities, about the challenges that we have regarding translating those resources within the languages. So yes, thank you very much for all the support to all the partner organization and our language professionals across the project.
Thank you so much, Daniela. And please share the voice, share these amazing resources. Thank you so much to everyone that was behind this project, this amazing project. And now we'll start the panel discussion. So over to you, Eva.
Thanks, Carla. And I'll invite Tabitha and Phil to join us, because the panel discussion is all about them. And that is because when this idea first was born in, I don't know, Tabitha, in your brain, I guess is the way to say it, we really got behind it, even though there was very little information at that stage yet. The legislation wasn't passed. But Tabitha, can I ask you, what is the Voice Referendum, although I gave it a little bit of an intro, and why did Life Without Barriers got behind it to this extent and with such passion?
Thank you, Eva. And gosh, it's so nice to be amongst friends, and it's really gorgeous to meet Phil for the first time. I'd also just like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land that I'm joining from today, which is Gadigal country. So it's a really good question, Eva. And for Life Without Barriers, the significance of the Voice Referendum really came, and our commitment to work on it really came from a decision that we'd made as an organisation back in 2017, which was to put our support behind the Uluru Statement of the Heart. And for anybody that's joining us today, if you haven't read the statement, I really encourage you to do that. SBS do have some translations of the Uluru Statement, so it is out there and accessible for people. But it's really a poetic call and a poetic invitation from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our country, inviting us to walk with them towards improving the state of nation for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And within the Uluru Statement, one of the recommendations is a voice to Parliament, which essentially means Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people being able to represent themselves to government so they can have more influence over the policies and decisions and the funding that goes into services that affect them. And I was really fortunate, along with a colleague of mine, to go to the Yes Lab, which was a coming together over 2 days by the Yes campaign, you know, what feels like a long time ago, but it was just a matter of months in February, to talk about how our organisations could work together to show our support for the Voice to Parliament. And I've, over the course of my career, I've known Eva now for, you know, quite a number of years, and I've been involved in and exposed to the importance of ensuring that information is readily available in this country. Sometimes in the not-for-profit sector particularly, we do lean on everything being in English, and we work and live in communities that are beautifully diverse. And so it was really, I think the big takeaway for myself and my colleague Savina was we have a real opportunity within our organisation for our 13,000 odd workforce and the you know, tens upon thousands of people we're working with across the country to ensure that we supported providing factual information so that people can make, as Daniela said beautifully, an informed decision at the referendum later this year.
Thank you, Tabitha. And I don't know if I ever told you, but I think you are our ideal client by far because of your engagement, your care, and the passion for getting it right. Because what Daniela showed us just before, I don't know if people can imagine working with 250 different people on so many resources, and we really wanted to get it right. And I think the working group and Life Without Barriers, it was so clear to us that it wasn't just about ticking boxes or producing something that people aren't going to read or aren't going to understand. It was more about getting something out there into the community as quickly as we could, to as many people as we could. So we're still working on disseminating these resources, of course, but the idea was to get it out fast. And it's been an amazing learning experience as well for me because we've done Aboriginal languages. We've done languages that are somewhat considered rarer, such as Assyrian. We were talking to Phil before we came online about the language that he translates into and from. And there aren't that many speakers of Assyrian. So often, when we translate things, we go for top 10 or top 20 and miss out on languages where nothing ever gets translated. Phil, how was it for you translating this particular resource?
Well, just like any other translation assignment, it was a bit challenging, but eventually we managed to get through. So there was no problem.
Okay. And the challenging bits of a translation like that, and I should know because I did the Polish translation, were to try and get the message across rather than the words themselves. So we wanted to hit people's hearts and get them passionate about, firstly, understanding what this is about, but secondly, going beyond that understanding and really getting, so as a migrant and refugee to this land, I think it's extremely important that we take a bow and really absorb the reasons for all of this happening. But linguistically, Phil, what were some of the challenges that you came across when you were working on the translation?
Yeah, I was involved in two ways. And in one assignment, I was involved as a translator. Excuse me. But in another assignment, I was involved as the checker of the translation.
Okay.
And that one I found a bit challenging.
Tell us why.
It was a document that was initiated by the AEC people, Australian Electoral Commission.
Okay.
And I find some of the language used in the text was a bit challenging, not just to the translator, but in my opinion, to even people reading it in the English language. For example, I picked up a few words that were used in the translation. They used a term, you can vox group voters, vox, V-O-X. Now, I didn't understand what that means. But later I understood it meant you can interview the voters to find out what they think about the referendum. Words like, I found them using words like cohort. Now, we don't even use the word cohort much in our daily language. I wish some of these authors can use more simple, more straightforward language.
Yes.
Instead of cohorts, use groups. They use the word roles. Now, when you use the word roles, it can mean many different things. But in this particular instance, we're talking about the voting roles. So they should be specific. They should try and be specific and say voting roles, not just roles.
Yes.
Talking about, there was one statement which I found very intriguing, and I couldn't understand exactly what they meant until I read an explanation somewhere. The timing of the formal result declared by the AEC is entirely dependent on the margin in a state, territory, or nationally against the number of votes yet to be counted. Now, I didn't understand what that means.
Yeah.
Somebody,
Thanks, Phil. So luckily we didn't have these issues with our translation. But I was going to ask Tabitha, what were some of the challenges in creating the English source text? Because even that was pretty difficult to do, right?
Yes, it was, Eva. And I mean, out of the gate, I would say the thing that really made this work possible was a couple of things. One, we've been blessed with some wonderful relationships, some, you know, a few years old, and then others that were new. And we found that just everybody came to the table together. Now, whilst this idea and some of this work might have been born within our organisation, something that I know and I've learned to a number of times over the last couple of decades of my career is that collective wisdom, so getting more people together around the table, makes the work stronger. It's harder to do because you have all different views, but ultimately, if you can keep pushing through that, 9 times out of 10, what you end up with is just so much better. And we don't have all of the answers within our organisation. And so it was important, I think, to get a group of people around the table, that wonderful list of partners that you brought up on screen earlier. I think the learnings and some of the challenges were really on, I think Phil's articulated this beautifully, on the nuance of language. And one thing that comes to mind really easily is whether we refer to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people or First Nations peoples or Indigenous people. And I learned a lot about how some of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander partner organisations, we really listened to their guidance on that. I would also say that we know, because we're seeing it in the public landscape, that this is a sensitive topic, and there's a lot of commentary on either side. Unfortunately, there's negativity out there in the media landscape. And so there's a natural nervousness, I think, sometimes that comes in when you're working on things like this together that you're going to put out into communities en masse. And so I think making space for people to feel a bit nervous, we all wanted to really, really get it right. And definitely learnings for me in supporting our group to navigate some of that. But definitely people's view on respectful language. And also, I think to Phil's point as well, deconstructing difficult ideas to make them as simple as possible. Because as you said, a change to the Constitution, it's a big thing, and we should actually take as much information, you know, with us as we go in to vote at the end of the year. And we were certainly passionate about making sure that nobody was left without the valuable information that they needed. So I think my final quick point, Eva, on that would be, we've probably got a challenge that we're a little bit more skilled and ready to grapple with. And that is, as we go through the final months and a date comes out, we've now got more of an opportunity to help people understand what the voice will really look like, what the model will be, and how it might address some questions that people might have about what it will do and what it won't do. And we need to do that together in an environment of community translations.
And thank you for emphasizing all of that, because I think the other challenge for us was that people have opinion about language. And it's not an exact science, and we wanted to make this translations community-led for a couple of reasons. One was that we wanted to get it right and accurate, but we also wanted to make inroads into the community by working with community organizations, community leaders, to already know that this is happening. And, you know, when people got behind this initiative, as far as communicating the resources, we can see YouTube views, and in some communities they're massive because they got somebody, a real person behind this and spreading the word. Apart from what you, Tabitha, said and Phil, to get it right in English in the first place, the other challenge was to translate this in a way that resonated with the communities and really gave them clarity and a point of being able to explore this further. There's lots of other information out there created by Australian Electoral Commission, SBS, other places. But by keeping it really simple, very factual and accessible, shareable, we wanted to spread the word quickly. Now, poor Daniela, who was the project manager on the entire project, I was kind of behind the scenes. Daniela, what was the most challenging bit of it when you were working on it?
Thank you, Eva, for the question. I think that the project was challenging in many ways, but also I think that allows us to learn a lot about this country. So one of the challenging things was just like to coordinate all the language professionals, try to have everybody on board, but not just as Phil mentioned before, not just translating the words, but also understanding what the voice referendum means, because that was the real challenge. And it was a beautiful process because we get involved per language, at least 3-4 people. And with all of them, we got different opinions, different perceptions. And then I think that we really had a resource that is accurate, that try to be available and understandable for everybody. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges. And also, as Tabitha mentioned, at the beginning also it was quite challenging just to find what the right words were, right? So at the beginning we started mentioning Indigenous people, First Nation people. And then thanks to all those meetings with the working group, we knew that the right way was Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people. And also just like it was an opportunity to learn a lot about this country. In my case, personally, not just about the project itself. I have been in Australia for around 3 years, and I haven't had any idea about the Aboriginal people, about the referendum, about how relevant this is for the country. So yes, that is something that I'm really grateful for, because I think that everybody learned across a lot.
Lots of learning. And I think, to coordinate this many people and feedback, and also there were some time pressures because people wanted to take these resources to the festivals, to the groups. Like every day I get a request for yet another language. So I think we are working on sort of stage 2 of this. We're waiting on the date to be announced. There's lots of things that we are working on behind the scenes. But the most important thing for us, I think, at the moment is how to disseminate these resources, because they're there. And we work with, lots of different communities to try and send the message that this exists, because, I might attend an event where people say, oh, has there anything been translated? And so that tells me that we haven't got that right yet. So I was going to get Tabitha to speak about this a little bit, maybe about the dissemination and how we can all make sure that this assets, these resources get out there into the community.
Yeah, what a fundamentally important question. And of course, the Polaron team know this really well. We were very deliberate in wanting to make sure that we shared access to these resources, because we certainly felt that they would be of value to other people and organisations. And as Eva said, they are on our website that people can draw down from. I think my reflection is a couple of things, Eva, that we would certainly be really open to feedback about how we could make the resources on our website even easier to utilize. You know, we've sort of done our absolute best, and I think we'd be really open to community response around, are there different things that we could do to make it even easier to engage? We're doing a body of work at the moment where we're kind of looking at all of the different relationships that we have and all of the different partnerships that we have, and creating packs of this information to share so that you know, some of our stakeholders and partner organizations know they're available. And I would certainly encourage anybody who's on this link and watching this to do exactly the same. Please use the resources for yourself, but then also share them on. You know, there's no limit. It can get into as many hands as possible. I think one of the challenges, of course, is that we know in Australia that people tend to, not always, but people tend to start to familiarise themselves closer to voting day. And because this is such an important decision for the country, we're trying to encourage people to start to think about educating themselves earlier, but that's always going to be a little bit of a challenge to get people thinking about this, you know, a few months out. I think the Prime Minister said the other day that people in Australia are not, you know, we don't really love a long campaign. So I suspect we might hear the date in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I think certainly for us, Eva, providing the information to all of our resources, to all of our partners, we're also setting up a few other partnerships in the disability sector and also across aged care, so that we can look at how we can make sure that the materials are known and that people can access them freely and easily.
Thank you. And we do use technology where we can. So we, for example, received some feedback to include QR codes on the fact sheets. And, you know, this is an ever-evolving project. So we are very open to people's feedback. And if anyone has any ideas about dissemination or where else we can distribute these materials, they're welcome to contact us. Phil, over to you. I know that you've worked in radio for many years, and you are quite connected to the translating and interpreting sector as well as the community. What are your thoughts on what else could we do to disseminate this information across Australia?
Well, the main source of the information is going to be AEC, Australian Electoral Commission. And I'm sure they have a very resourceful website. And they will be, no doubt, disseminating the information mostly in the English language. But they're going to also going to do it in a number of community languages. So the best way to disseminate information on a website is to typeset the information, print it on the website. But a lot of organizations like yourselves are using audios and videos a lot. Audio and video formats a lot. So we can use that as a way of disseminating the information. For example, I've seen audios and videos in Assyrian language, or they have been in the English language, but the subtitles have been in the Assyrian language. So there are all sorts of ways you can do it. But I mentioned all the years I was involved in broadcasting, and one of you, I think, mentioned SBS. They have a very valuable resource in over 60 languages, including, in my case, the Assyrian language. Now we can utilize that resource as well, the SBS, because a lot of people listen to the SBS and utilize their Facebook, their website, their resources. So SBS would be another one.
Great. Thank you. And I think community radio in general is a very good outlet and a way to connect with communities. There are, of course, in-language newspapers, but essentially what we are describing, they feel, is you can't just translate something, put it on our website and hope that people will find it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to be a lot more creative, innovative, and the resources need to be tailor-made for the communities, because some will have literacy levels that aren't, due to which they cannot maybe even read in any language, or they from refugee background where education levels are quite low. So as you pointed out, different ways of disseminating information, being creative and going to where people hang around. So for some people it's Facebook, people use WhatsApp, they use Skype, WeChat, Weibo, there's lots of different ways. So I guess for each community we need to be a bit more creative than just creating a long document that nobody reads. And I think the key, as you pointed out earlier, is prepare the source text or the English in a way that it can be understood, so that the translator's job is easier and they can actually create words that resonate and work for the community. I think we have a few minutes for questions. So thank you, Tabitha and Phil. I'll hand over to Carla to see what questions we have from people that are watching us online.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much to everyone that has left some questions. So the first questions that we have is, do you know if there's official translations of the acknowledgement to country?
Good question. I think there are some in some languages, and they have been created by a Melbourne company called Language Loop, or also called Bits. I don't know exactly in how many languages, but I know they've been done. And I have heard some people, for example, the new CEO of Language Loop, Emiliano Zucchi, whenever he opens an event, he says the acknowledgement of country in Italian. So, but we can find out and let you know. Yeah.
Great. Then we have another great question. How many languages will the Voice to Parliament resources will be available in?
Goodness, if we could, we'd translate it into all 300 languages that people speak in Australia, but that's not possible. And that is why we have, and thanks to Tabitha and the working group, we have created accessible resources in English. So we're talking about plain English, easy read and video and social media tiles. But this lot of translation, I think they're 52 or 53 languages. And as I said earlier, every day I get requests for more. I got everything from Armenian to Somali we've done, but I got a rare language the other day as well, all the Pacifico languages, and we're going to look at as many as we can, but I think it'll be around maybe 50 to 60 altogether. Tabitha, what do you think?
Yes, I think we're not going to be limited, right, Eva? Because I think we just make sure as we said, we don't leave anyone behind. I think what we do know also is that the federal government, the referendum working group, and you can access some of these materials by going to www.voice.gov.au. The federal government has translated information into 16 languages. So we definitely see us working more on additional languages as being very, very, very important.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tabitha.
Thank you. Do Australians have enough information to vote at the referendum?
Oh, goodness, that's a question for Tabitha. What do you think?
I think that I followed Minister Burney's mindset that I'm positive, and full disclosure to the people watching that Life Without Barriers is obviously in support of the referendum. I think we have more to do so that so that Australian voters really understand the full benefits of what the Voice to Parliament can bring. And I would say the way that we look at it is that it's not just about understanding all of the issues that the Voice to Parliament would be addressing. So things like disadvantage and poverty and some of those sort of terrible statistics that you see around Aboriginal people in the criminal justice system. But actually we want Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in this country and their culture to really thrive. So I think we've got some more work to do to help people understand that that's the end goal.
And I think if I could just add to that, speaking from the migrant and refugee lived experience, I think when people understand, then they can engage. And I think giving people understanding at a basic level will encourage them to explore this more. So if there are additional translations that the government will eventually do, they will find them on those websites where they sit. But I think just getting people informed at a basic level is also quite important, and giving them something to make them think and stop. So one of the things, for example, that I didn't know until I got involved in this project is that when the referendum questions are asked, I will have to write yes or no. I can't tick a box. Now, how many people know that? Not many. So we are looking at a second lot of resources that we're going to create, and we want them factual and useful for people, because yes, we can translate everything for everybody, and but that's not the point. The point is to create resources that people really engage with. They give them information that they can follow, explore, or actually make them, empowered to vote, which is our not just an obligation, but it's our right. So many people that come to this land and become citizens, it's the greatest privilege to vote. And for many of us, we haven't heard of a concept of a referendum. So empowering people by giving them basic information that they can explore, ask further questions is what we wanted to do through this process as well.
Yes.
Cool.
And do we have time for one more?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So the last one is, has anybody put in any mechanism to ensure that translated words done by different language agencies for the referendum are the same?
No, is the answer. So this is the nature of our industry, where sometimes we put in efforts into different spaces that are not really well coordinated. But you know what? I could sit, sorry, with all due respect, on the fence and wait for other people to do stuff, or I can jump in and do it. And so privileged that Life Without Barriers got behind us and said, we will work with you on this, because you know what? Next month, in 3 months, in 6 months, it'll be too late. Too late. People need this information now. So we think, and I strongly believe, that the resources we've worked on, and there was a massive working group, lots of work put into creating them in English and then translating, hundreds of people, are what we need right now. But generally speaking, our industry is not well coordinated. So it is what it is, but we've done our best, I think, in this instance.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I know there's a couple of other questions that we'll address them internally. But if you do have any language services related inquiries, please contact me at carla.f@polaron.com.au. And be sure to follow our social channels. So we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I also want to say a big thank you to our panelists, Philemon, Tabata, Daniela, and of course, our best moderator, Eva. You've all been wonderful. Thank you once again for joining this webinar. We hope you enjoy, and see you next time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Carla. And thank you, Tabata. Thank you, Phil. Thanks, Daniela. Really appreciate it.